Here's accurate exposures. Let's talk about how to achieve that for a minute. Well, let's put this up here. Manual or aperture priority? Which do I use? Yes. You know, there's no right or wrong. So if someone says to you, in order for you to be a professional photographer, Cheryl, you must use manual. Have you ever heard that? Did you ever have the inkling, well, if I don't know how to use a camera manual, if I can't use it in manual, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'll never make good pictures. Nonsense. I use aperture priority much of the time. I use manual mode much of the time. The right mode for the right situation. When the exposure setting is consistent, I'm loving manual because I don't have to move it. But if the situation is changing, and by the way, I use matrix metering most of the time, almost all the time. I don't feel the need, nor do I want to take the time to spot meter off of a subject's face. So I'm estimating the scene, and I'm going to talk about estimation in just a second, because I'm going to talk about exposure compensation, okay? Why and when. Here's the general rules. The darker the overall scene, the more you compensate under. The brighter the overall scene, the more you compensate over. Here's the visual I'd like to present to you, okay? If I went behind this black curtain there, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. I stuck my head through a black curtain, all you get is my head. And I was to take a picture with a, let's say I had a 24-70. And I'm not even going to get into the different lenses that need to be used, because 24-70 is, you know, will limit your creative process if that's all you use. I go ahead and I take the picture in matrix metering, 0.0 exposure compensation. Take the picture. What's going to happen to my face? It's going to be overexposed. The reason is, and the simple reason is that the meter is saying, holy crap, it's pretty dark. We need to slow the shutter down. Remember, I'm an aperture priority. We need to slow the shutter down in order for us to get a proper exposure, because the situation is dark. And in doing so, it's going to basically blow my face to smithereens and make it too bright. So we have to lie to the camera, because the camera wants to make everything what? 18% gray. Do we live in a friggin' 18% gray world? No. This carpet is pretty close to 18% gray. I wish the whole world was 18% gray. We would have no exposure issues, ever. Just use automatic modes all the time. But we can't do that. So we have to predict the scene. So what I would do is I would predict the scene, and I would say, okay, I'm going to try, just for starters, -1 7/10. So that's minus 1.7 in my Nikon. I bet you that would get pretty close to nailing it. And then I would take the picture, I would chimp quickly. If I missed, I would adjust from there and get it on the second try. But it's a quick chimp. So it's take the picture, boom, bring the camera. I might have nailed it on the first one. Usually I do, because I can predict the situation before I take the picture. That's the key. Just as the white bed sheet, if I stuck my head through, and I know that you've all done this. You've taken a picture of the groomsmen in their black tuxes. You've taken the picture, and you're in automatic mode, and the faces are blown out, correct? You know this has happened in situations. Just like the bridesmaids and the bride, they're in light color dresses. You take the picture and their faces are underexposed. Well, if I've got the white bed sheet, stuck my head through, I know that the camera's going to say, we need to speed the shutter up because there's all this light, and it's going to underexpose the face. So before you take that photograph, once again, in matrix metering, hit the exposure comp dial. I would turn it to the left on my Nikon, telling the camera to slow the shutter a little bit and get a proper exposure. So exposure compensation is my way of shooting manual. I'm predicting it, and I'm riding the exposure comp dial, just up and down, predicting the scene before I shoot it. This is what I mean by the technical aspects must be innate. Okay? Make it instinctive, and also, don't forget to change back for the next scene. Otherwise, you're going to screw yourself, and you're going to be, why is this over? Why is this under? All right? And the question hasn't been asked, you know, histograms. Are they important? Not to me. You know, I don't have these nice little smooth humps of a histogram. It doesn't look like a nice camel. You know, mine are jagged, you know, ugly ass histograms, really ugly. So if I looked at a histogram, I'm going to think I missed every time. Look at the histogram. Look at that guy's histogram. He sucks. But the way I use light, I'm going to clip my highlights and, you know, all kinds of stuff's going to happen the way I use light. It's very different.